When trauma happens, one thing most victims have in common is they feel a loss of control, a total loss of control, especially something like sexual assault. You feel a total loss of control over what's happened to your most intimate self. And that sense of loss of control continues unless you deal with it. It continues for years. It did for me.
She was true to uncovering exactly not only what had happened, but answering that awful question that all trauma victims feel, which is, why? Why me?
I realized that what I needed to do was take control of my own narrative.
The most important thing for me was to set the mood. One of the first choices is go to black and white, which it always gives that real timeless feel. Secondly, it was the lens choice. It's sort of a tilt-shift lens, which sort of mimics the old 4x5, sort of have an ethereal, dreamlike feel, like the nightmare that Joanna Connors was trying to forget.
I also had a real intense desire to find out what happened to the rapist and who he was, not just what happened to him after the rape, but what had happened to him that led him to be a violent criminal. And the only way to find that out was to use journalist tools.
It was almost a societal study by the time she finished it. It went way beyond one person's personal experience, and I think the best stories about trauma do that. They become a universal experience.
One of the overriding metaphors of the series was that when the rape was happening, I had an out-of-body experience. So in a sense, I had been observing myself in this situation from the very beginning. And the story was all about no longer being an observer.
This story in itself explains the process of dealing with trauma, because a lot of dealing with trauma is storytelling itself.
We were really learning a lot about trauma and the impact of trauma. And that's what the DART Award is all about.
I was looking for closure. And what I found is that there is no closure. People always said, well, were you able to forgive the rapist at the end of the story? And I never felt that I needed to forgive the rapist. But what I didn't recognize was I really needed to forgive myself. And that's what I came from the story having done. And that's better than closure.